All right, everyone, our dough has now chilled for an hour, so we are back. So this is what your dough looks like after chilling for an hour. It's still soft, but not as sticky and should be ready to roll. Literally, ha 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 ha. I'm so funny. All right, so what you want to do now is you want to cut your graham cracker dough in half, and you want some parchment paper. Parchment paper makes this a lot easier because you want your dough to get really thin. So in order to roll it out thin and so it doesn't stick to the surface and add extra flour, and then you can put it right on your baking sheet. If you have parchment paper, that would be ideal. So I'm going to take half of the dough now, and I have my parchment paper here. Just stick it on my parchment paper, and then I want to roll out the dough until it's about 1/16 inches thick. So that is the goal here. My parchment paper is a little like folded, so keeping it down can be tough. If you want, you can always put a little bit of flour on your rolling pin just to protect it and prevent it from sticking to the dough, which I might need to grab some. So after you roll out both pieces of dough, what you are going to do next is you are going to brush it with some milk. You also want to make sure you have milk, and if you want, you can add a little bit of cinnamon sugar to the top as well. So I'm just going to take a little bit of flour here, the precious commodity right now, and put it on my rolling pin, just so it doesn't stick as much to my dough. There we go. All right, and you want to roll this out, as I said before, until it is quite thin, about 1/16 of an inch in thickness. So it's going to be a thin dough, but that's because it will bake and it will expand. So working on trying to get this to be a rectangle. Now, while you're rolling it out, you want to make sure you preheat your oven. So you are going to put your oven on to about 400 degrees Fahrenheit. So preheat it to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. As I said, you also want to have some milk nearby to brush the dough with as a glaze on top. And if you want, you can also sprinkle it with cinnamon and sugar, but that's up to you. I'm not very good at forming a rectangle here. Good thing you can't see this. But it's going to taste delicious, so that's what really matters. This looks more like Australia. Don't worry, I'll show you. You can decide what you think my dough looks more like after I keep rolling it out. Maybe there's still hope for it. All right, you also want cookie sheets. So after you do this with the first piece, you'll do it with the second piece, and you want to put it on a cookie sheet. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it in the oven for about 10 minutes, not cut. You're going to put it in the oven for about 10 minutes, rotate the pan after 5-10 minutes in the oven. Then you're going to take it out, and with a pizza cutter, if you have one, or just a knife, you are going to slice the dough, but don't fully cut it. You're just going to make like marks in the dough, slice it, but don't actually separate it. Then you will let it cook for another 18 to 20 minutes. You want to turn off the oven after that with the door open for 5 minutes, and then take these out and cool for about 20 minutes. And I will put the recipe on Schoology as always, so you can follow along there. All right, 1 second. I have my TV on pause and it came back on. There we go. All right, we don't need any background noise. Okay, so just gonna roll this out as soon as I can. It is definitely not a rectangle, but that's okay. Here we go. I'm gonna keep rolling it a little bit thinner, but that's like the gist of what your graham cracker dough will look like. So just a few final facts. In the last video, I talked to you a lot about Sylvester Graham and who he was and what he believed in. He believes in vegetarianism. He believes in temperance or not drinking alcohol. He was a minister, and during part of the reform movement at this time. So a few other fun facts about him was that he really did inspire a lot of people in his ideas. People who followed him were known as Grahamites, and they even created these Grahamite boarding houses where people who lived there all followed his teachings, from vegetarianism to eating things like your graham cracker and other ways of thinking. And some of them I mentioned before, these different communal living utopians. Some of Grahamites even went to the one utopian society called Brooks Farm in Massachusetts, which was not successful. And we'll talk about that more next week as history students. But thinking about how people actually did buy into him. Now, as I mentioned before, his graham crackers were very bland, were not a sweet treat at all. They were supposed to make people, more pure from eating these like whole wheat grains. And the graham cracker that we know today, the more honey, cinnamon, sweet graham cracker, was first created by the National Baking Company, otherwise known as Nabisco, in 1898. So the graham cracker can be traced back all the way to 1898, and then other companies started making them as well. But again, different than Sylvester Graham's original purpose. All right, I have my dough rolled out, so I'm going to pull off it on my cookie sheet. And then I am going to grab some more parchment paper. I will start rolling out my other dough. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is, as I said, bake it for about 10 minutes. Then you're going to slice it. You're going to bake it for another 18 to 20 minutes. Open the open the oven. Let it cool for about 5 minutes in the oven. Take out the dough and then let it cool for another about 20 minutes. But I'll post a recipe on Schoology and some final pictures so you can follow along and be empowered with your new knowledge of the graham cracker, a truly historical treat. All right, everybody, you got 2 videos this week. That's it for Historical Baking with Miss Levine. I'll post the final results soon, and I'll see you all later. Keep baking up some history.